Before we dive into the story, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Because today's tale comes straight from the stars, where one human turned a galactic classroom upside down with a single terrifying choice. Trust me, you'll want to stick around till the end for this one. Jack Carter had been at the Interstellar Academy of Exchange Sapiens for 3 weeks, and already the humans were a curiosity. The school floated above a binary star, a glittering shell of mirrored glass and alloy, home to the brightest young minds of 50 species. But Jack? He was the first of his kind here, a representative from a little blue death world called Earth. He didn't much look the part. Tall, sun-browned, with a mop of sandy hair and a grin that rarely knew restraint, Jack carried himself with the lazy confidence of someone who'd grown up in a world where everything wanted to bite, sting, or drown you. He was still learning the etiquette of a place where telepathic jelly students shared desks with crystalline thinkers and air-breathing amphibians, but what he lacked in grace, he made up for in nerve. "Carter," hissed a voice beside him, glistening and translucent. Drone, a gelatinous student whose species evolved in methane swamps, had the tone of someone who had already decided he was superior. "The Academy's exhibition is next week. Each of us is to bring a companion creature from our homeworld. Perhaps you can find one that doesn't immediately perish in an oxygenated environment." Jack leaned back, chewing the end of his stylus, pretending to think. "Might be tricky. Most of ours bite." Drone's surface rippled with amusement. "Your world is quaint. You humans love to exaggerate your dangers. You claim to live among predators, yet none of your species have evolved proper defensive adaptations. Soft skin, blunt teeth, no venom. You're practically prey." "Yeah," Jack said with a grin. "We noticed. That's why we built tools." Before Drone could respond, the classroom shimmered as Principal Tralkeen descended from the ceiling. 8 legs clicked softly as the insectoid administrator's mandibles flexed in greeting. "Students," he announced, "next rotation we shall host the companion exhibition. You are to bring a creature native to your world. This is to celebrate ecological diversity and responsible companionship across the Galactic Union." The room filled with excited murmurs. One student boasted of her levitating pollen beetles. Another bragged about his empathic larva that could mimic emotions. Only Jack stayed quiet, his brow furrowed in thought. Tralkeen's multifaceted eyes turned to him. "Mr. Carter, Earth is known for its extreme environmental conditions. Perhaps your contribution will enlighten us all." Jack smiled slowly. "Yeah, I reckon it will." After class, he sat alone at the edge of the viewing deck, staring at the streak of sunlight across the twin stars. The school's artificial gravity hummed under his boots. Around him floated the quiet chatter of 100 alien voices. For all their brilliance, for all their evolved senses and psychic empathy, they didn't understand what survival meant. They came from worlds of balance, harmony, safety. None of them had ever had to sprint barefoot from a snake or wrestle a spider the size of a hand off their pillow. He tapped open his holocom and pulled up a restricted channel labeled Earth Fauna Transportation Guidelines. The warning at the top read, "Approval required for Class 6 or higher predatory species. Dangerous. Handle with trained supervision only." He scrolled down the list: tiger, great white shark, cassowary, saltwater crocodile. His thumb hovered over the last one. A slow grin spread across his face. When Jack turned in the form, the transport clerk blinked in confusion. "You wish to bring a what?" "Crocodile. Saltwater type. Biggest one we can safely sedate. I'll handle the care and containment myself. Do you have any idea how large those are?" Jack shrugged. "Yeah, that's the point." The clerk hesitated, mandibles twitching. "The principal authorized any companion, yes?" "That's what he said." "Then may the stars protect us," the clerk muttered, stamping the approval. The next few days rippled with rumors. Whispers followed Jack through the cafeteria and corridors. "The humans bringing a monster. They say it has teeth like alloy saws. It can swim through acid." Jack let the rumors grow unchecked. It wasn't about scaring them, not really. It was about respect. You didn't understand Earth by looking at flowers. You understood it by meeting the things that survived it. On the evening before the exhibition, Frshka, a tall, emerald-scaled reptilian student and top of the biology class, found Jack calibrating the containment tank. She tilted her head, tail curling. "You really brought one, didn't you?" Jack glanced up, tightening a valve. "Yeah. His name's Rex." "Your species' arrogance astonishes me," she said, but her tone was more admiration than judgment. "You tame apex predators?" He grinned. "We try. Sometimes they let us think we have." Her pupils narrowed. Do you realize that if it breaks containment, it could consume half the student body before security intervenes? Guess that's incentive not to mess with the tank then. She studied him for a long moment. You're either brave or foolish, Jack Carter. Back home, he said, sealing the final hatch, there's not much difference. The lights of the twin suns dimmed to dusk mode, bathing the hall in amber glow. Efrarshka's reflection shimmered in the water of the containment tank, where a massive shape stirred beneath the surface. A single golden eye opened, unblinking. She took a step back, scales prickling. It's alive already? Jack's voice softened, almost proud. That's him getting used to the gravity. He'll be fine by morning. The croc's tail shifted lazily, sending ripples across the tank. Efrarshka whispered something in her native tongue, a word that roughly translated to God-beast. Jack turned off the lights, the faint gleam of the creature's eye the only thing visible in the dark. Tomorrow's show and tell's gonna be interesting. And for the first time since he'd arrived at the Interstellar Academy, Jack Carter felt entirely at home, because for once, the universe was about to see what a real apex predator looked like. The day of the exhibition dawned with the hum of excitement rippling through every corridor of the Interstellar Academy. Students floated or strode toward the Grand Habitat Hall, each proudly escorting a creature from their homeworld. The air shimmered with scents and sounds alien and vibrant, the low chime of crystalline beetles, the telepathic laughter of empathic larvae, the faint glow of bioluminescent moths that left trails like drifting starlight. Jack Carter leaned against a railing, arms crossed, watching the spectacle unfold below. The alien creatures were beautiful, delicate, even elegant, but none of them looked dangerous. He smirked. Cute zoo day, he muttered under his breath. Drone, the gelatinous student, oozed up beside him, his surface flickering smugly. Where is your contribution, human? Could it not survive transport? I heard your planet's wildlife is as fragile as you are. Jack's grin widened. Don't worry, mate. He's just making his entrance. Moments later, the massive doors at the end of the hall slid open with a mechanical hiss. Two drone carriers floated in, straining under the weight of a reinforced containment tank filled halfway with seawater. The metal creaked. Ripples danced across the surface. And then the room fell silent. A shape moved in the water, slow, deliberate, ancient. A golden eye rolled toward the glass, followed by the faintest movement of a jaw lined with teeth like daggers. The collective gasp of 100 species echoed through the chamber. Principal Tralkeen's mandibles twitched violently. Mr. Carter, he began, voice cracking, what, precisely, have you brought into my exhibition? Jack straightened, hands in his pockets. Saltwater crocodile. Crocodilus porosus. Apex predator from Earth's tropical coasts. Say hello to Rex. Rex did not say hello. He drifted closer to the glass, unblinking, the tip of his snout just breaking the surface. The croc's mere stillness radiated menace. One of the empathic larvae began wailing, overwhelmed by a psychic pulse of raw predatory intent. Efrarshka, standing near the front, was transfixed. Her reptilian pupils dilated, recognizing something primal in the creature's presence. He's magnificent, she whispered. A perfect evolutionary design. Drone's gelatin quivered with disgust. It's grotesque. That thing is. The crocodile's tail flicked once, splashing water against the glass. The sound was enough to silence the room again. Jack rested an elbow casually on the tank's edge. Fun fact, they haven't changed much in about 200 million years. Didn't need to. When you're that good at killing, evolution takes the day off. Tralkeen's claws clicked nervously. This violates at least 7 safety regulations. What if it breaks containment? It won't, Jack said. Unless someone's dumb enough to open the tank. Laughter rippled awkwardly through the crowd, more tension than humor. The principal gestured for the next presentation to continue, but every alien's eyes kept flicking back toward the crocodile. No one paid attention to the fluttering crystal moths or singing fungi now. The human exhibit had eclipsed everything. Rex remained motionless for nearly an hour, a motionless green-brown monolith. The stillness made the aliens uneasy. When the levitating pollen beetles buzzed too close, the crocodile turned its head just slightly, and the beetle's owner hurriedly recalled them. Efrarshka approached, holding a data pad. May I scan him? She asked cautiously. Jack nodded. Go ahead. Just don't tap the glass. Her scanner emitted a low hum, then overloaded with a pop. She blinked. It broke my biospectral reader. Yeah, Jack said, amused. He does that. Efrarshka's voice softened. How do you live among creatures like this? Jack considered the question. You don't live among them, he said. You live with them. You learn what they respect: space, patience, confidence. You lose that, you become lunch. Her gaze flicked to his face. And you have never been attacked? Oh sure, Jack said, chuckling. You don't grow up in the north without a few close calls. But once they learn you're not prey, they leave you be. A murmur of disbelief spread through the crowd. Drone's form pulsed with irritation. Preposterous. You speak as though this beast understands submission. Jack shrugged. Call it whatever you want. I call it knowing your place in the food chain, and not at the bottom. The conversation was cut short by a sudden metallic clang. One of the smaller drones malfunctioned under the strain of the tank's weight, and the frame shifted. Water sloshed violently. The crocodile surged upward, jaws snapping at the surface, slamming into the reinforced glass with a thunderous crack. Screams echoed through the hall. A few students scrambled for the exits, their limbs flailing in zero-gravity panic. Tralkeen nearly fell from his perch. Jack didn't move. He just raised a hand, calm as still water. Easy, Rex. None of that. You're fine. A low rumble resonated from the creature's chest, then slowly, incredibly, Rex settled back into the water. The ripples faded. The silence that followed was electric. Every eye turned to Jack. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Efrarshka whispered, "He listened to you." Jack smiled faintly. "Told you. Mutual respect." Tralkeen looked as if his exoskeleton might split. "Mr. Carter," he managed, "I believe we have seen enough of your companion for today." Jack nodded easily. "Fair enough. Wouldn't want to scare the beetles." He keyed the transport drones and the tank began to lift. As Rex's massive body disappeared down the corridor, conversations erupted in a dozen languages: awe, fear, disbelief. Drone glared after him, his body flickering with resentment. "That thing is a menace. You'll see. The human's pet will bring disaster." Efrarshka ignored him, her gaze fixed where the crocodile had been. "No," she murmured. "He just brought proof." Jack followed the tank out, hands in his pockets, whistling softly to himself. He didn't have to look back to know every eye was still on him. The door sealed shut behind him, leaving the alien students murmuring about predators, humans, and the thin line between bravery and insanity. And somewhere deep in the Academy's transport bay, Rex shifted in his tank, unblinking, as if he understood that, for the first time in galactic history, the universe was starting to learn what it meant to look into Earth's eyes. The Academy didn't sleep that night. Rumors spread faster than plasma currents. The human had brought a death world beast that shattered scanners and glared like a living weapon. By morning, 3 departments had filed safety complaints, and security drones hovered nervously outside the aquatic containment bay. Jack Carter ignored all of it. He sat cross-legged on the floor beside the tank, datapad in hand, humming to himself while Rex floated silently beneath the surface. "You're enjoying this," came Efrarshka's voice from the doorway. Her tone was disbelieving but not unkind. Jack looked up, grin crooked. "Enjoying? Nah. Just watching everyone learn a little humility." Efrarshka stepped closer, her claws clicking lightly against the floor. "You've made half the faculty fear for their lives. The principal called an emergency meeting this morning. They may demand Rex's removal." Jack leaned back on his hands. "Figures. Fear always comes before respect." She tilted her head. "And if he escapes?" He glanced at the sleeping croc. "Then I handle it." But confidence was not the same as control. Across the hall, Drone simmered in resentment. The humiliation of yesterday's exhibition gnawed at him. The human had turned his mockery into awe, and Drone's species, proud, analytical, perfectionist, did not forgive humiliation easily. He drifted into the maintenance sublevel, his gelatinous form slipping through cracks no solid being could manage, until he reached the containment controls. The console blinked with status lights: active field, stable temperature, oxygen exchange nominal. All he had to do was lower the field for a moment, just long enough to prove the human wrong. Drone's tendril pressed a control rune. Inside the tank, a faint hum died. The water stilled. Then with a slow, terrifying grace, Rex moved. Jack's head snapped up. "What the?" The tank shuddered. Metal groaned. A second later, the reinforced panel buckled outward. Water burst across the bay, flooding the floor. Efrarshka jumped back as alarms began to wail. Rex hit the ground with a wet crash, tail sweeping, jaws opening in a thunderous bellow that made the air vibrate. The sound was primal, not anger but pure, unfiltered dominance. "Containment breach," shouted a drone overhead, lights flashing crimson. "Predator class, lethal." Evacuate immediately. Students poured into the corridor, shrieking in a dozen languages. Drone froze, half hidden in the shadows, suddenly realizing the magnitude of his mistake. Jack was already moving. He grabbed a containment pole from the emergency locker and a bucket of raw protein feed from the storage unit. Stay behind me, he told Efrarshka. You cannot possibly. He cut her off. He knows me. Just don't run. Rex's golden eyes locked onto him. The great reptile's nostrils flared, tasting the air. For one breathless moment, predator and human stared at each other across the flooded bay. Then Jack spoke, voice low and steady. Easy, big fella. You're all right. Got a bit spooked, yeah? Rex's tail twitched. The air was thick with fear, the kind that pressed into your lungs and refused to let go. Jack stepped forward, bare feet splashing through the ankle-deep water. Efrarshka watched in astonishment. He's approaching it unarmed. Not unarmed, Jack murmured. Just not stupid. He tossed a chunk of meat into the water. Rex's head turned, jaws closing with a bone-crushing snap. Jack used the moment to edge closer, extending the containment pole like a shepherd's staff. You hungry, mate? Yeah, I bet you are. Behind him, the principal's voice shrieked through the calm. Security. Subdue the human and neutralize the creature. Do that, Jack shouted back, and you'll lose 3 more drones before it blinks. The crocodile hissed, a long, deep exhalation that rumbled through the metal floor. Jack held perfectly still, then dropped another piece of meat. See? Still friends. Slowly, impossibly, Rex's aggression eased. The creature's body lowered, muscles relaxing as it accepted the offering. Jack took one more step forward, hand resting lightly on the creature's armored hide. Efrarshka exhaled shakily. You have a death wish. He laughed softly. Nah. Just respect. Then the water surged as a maintenance drone, acting on emergency protocol, fired a containment shock pulse. The electric charge cracked across the room, hitting both Jack and Rex. The crocodile roared, thrashing violently. Jack was thrown backward into a support beam. The lights flickered. The hallway filled with chaos again. Rex spun toward the movement of fleeing students, and for a single heartbeat, the predator in him reawakened. His massive head swung toward Drone, who stood paralyzed in the corner. The gelatinous alien tried to back away, but his own body betrayed him, trembling too hard to hold shape. Jack forced himself upright, vision spinning. Rex. No. The croc froze mid-lunge, jaw inches from Drone's quivering form. The air was electric with tension. Jack limped forward, voice barely above a whisper. Don't make me regret trusting you, mate. Seconds stretched. Then, with a snort of water and air, Rex lowered his head. The predator backed off, the danger bleeding out of the moment like pressure from a wound. Jack collapsed against the tank, panting. Good boy, he murmured. Security teams finally burst in, surrounding them with plasma nets and shield drones. Efrarshka stepped forward, raising a claw. Stand down. The human has regained control. Principal Tralkeen's voice crackled through the comm again, tight with disbelief. He has tamed it? No, Efrarshka said softly, eyes on Jack. He earned its respect. Drone slithered forward, trembling. It could have killed me. Jack shot him a weary glance. Yeah. Maybe next time you'll think before turning off a containment field. The alien wilted, shame rippling through his translucent body. As cleanup crews moved in, Jack knelt by the croc's snout, resting a hand on its rough scales. You did good, boy. Let's get you back in the water. Efrarshka helped him reinitialize the containment systems, her claws deft over the controls. I do not understand you, she said quietly. You face death with calm. You meet monsters with compassion. Jack smiled faintly. You call it compassion. Back home we just call it Tuesday. When the bay finally quieted and the alarms dimmed to amber, Rex floated once again in his tank, tranquil and heavy-eyed. Jack stood drenched, exhausted, but unbroken. Around him, the aliens watched in reverent silence. The human had not just controlled a predator, he'd reminded them what control really meant. Outside, whispers began anew, stories of the Earthborn who commanded monsters, the predator who obeyed. The legend of the human spread through the halls before Jack had even changed clothes. And somewhere deep in the Academy's systems, the event log stamped a new classification for humanity's homeworld. Death World, confirmed. The morning after the containment incident was quieter than usual, but the tension in the Interstellar Academy was palpable. Hallways were lined with students whispering in clusters, eyes darting toward Jack Carter whenever he passed. His casual stride and sun-browned grin only amplified the mixture of awe and fear his species now commanded. Even the most confident alien students seemed uncertain how to act around a human who had just tamed a predator capable of tearing a hallway apart. Jack sat in the cafeteria, one arm resting on the table, a cup of water in the other hand as Efrarshka slid into the seat opposite him. Her tail wrapped around her chair in a gesture that was equal parts curiosity and caution. "You've become a legend overnight," she said softly. "Do you realize half the faculty is arguing about how to classify your species now?" Jack shrugged. "Legends are just stories people tell when they've run out of reality." He paused, then smirked. "Still, I'll take it." Efrarshka raised an eyebrow. "You do not understand them. They are debating expulsion, revocation of your exhibition rights, and in some departments, whether humans should be allowed on this campus at all." Jack laughed, a low, relaxed sound. "Yeah, I heard the chatter. They'll calm down. Humans adapt. That's what we do." Drone slid up behind them, oozing with barely concealed fury. "Adapt?" he hissed. "You endangered everyone. Do you call that adaptation?" Jack looked up slowly, letting his grin stretch wide. "I call it knowing my place in the food chain, mate. You might want to try it sometime." Drone recoiled slightly at the words. No other human had ever spoken to him that way, let alone tamed a creature that could have ended him. He shimmered with resentment but said nothing. The principal's summons arrived mid-morning, a summons that echoed across the cafeteria with an authority that usually silenced even the noisiest species. Jack followed Efrarshka through corridors still damp from the Croc's escape, the scent of wet metal and seawater lingering in the air. Tralkeen stood at the center of the disciplinary chamber, mandibles twitching nervously. Around him were representatives of several departments, each looking more alarmed than the last. "Mr. Carter," he began, voice clipped, "you have demonstrated a disregard for academy protocol, safety, and basic interspecies etiquette. Explain yourself." Jack leaned against the wall, arms folded, gaze calm. "I did exactly what you asked, bring a creature from my world. You wanted biodiversity? You got it. You didn't specify non-lethal." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One of the amphibian delegates clicked its tongue nervously. Efrarshka stepped forward. "If I may, Principal Tralkeen, the human has demonstrated extraordinary understanding of predator behavior. He did not just control the animal, he communicated respect. Rex responded to him because he earned it." The principal's eyes narrowed. "Extraordinary understanding is irrelevant if it endangers the student body." Jack's grin remained unshaken. "Funny thing about survival, it's only impressive if someone's trying to kill you. Rex didn't attack anyone because he trusted me, and anyone who tried to interfere got reminded why I brought him in the first place." The chamber fell silent. Even Drone seemed incapable of formulating a response. Efrarshka tilted her head. "You speak as though this is nothing extraordinary. Your species, Mr. Carter, thrives where others would perish." Jack shrugged. "We don't thrive by being delicate. We thrive by understanding danger, facing it, and making it work for us. You're all brilliant in your ways, but most of you haven't met a world where everything wants to eat you before breakfast." A low hum of tension vibrated through the room. Tralkeen's mandibles flexed in agitation, but even he could not dismiss the undeniable truth. The human had survived, controlled, and even tamed a creature that could have killed a dozen of his classmates in minutes. By mid-afternoon, the faculty had reached a compromise. Jack would keep Rex for the remainder of the exhibition, under strict supervision and enhanced containment protocols. Instead of punishment, he was asked to lecture on Earth's predator ecosystems, a proposal he accepted with a lazy nod. Later in the hallway, students approached him quietly, their voices a mixture of awe and fear. One crystalline adolescent whispered, "I thought humans were soft. Now I know better." Another reptilian peer muttered, "He treats a monster like a friend. That is, not a weakness." Drone, meanwhile, seethed silently, plotting his own reckoning. He would find a way to prove the human's methods flawed, though he now realized it would be a challenge unlike any he had faced before. Jack walked toward the observation deck where Rex's tank had been reinforced, the water glinting under the artificial sunlight. The crocodile lifted its head at his approach, golden eyes blinking slowly. Jack reached in and ran a hand along the rough scales of his companion. "Good boy," he murmured. "Let's show them what Earth really looks like." Efrarshka joined him, watching quietly. "Your species is remarkable. You understand control and fear in ways we have never studied." Jack shrugged again. "You survive long enough, you figure it out. Simple as that." The next morning the exhibition resumed with a new atmosphere. Students presented their creatures, but attention kept drifting back to the massive tank. Even the most exotic species now seemed fragile, delicate, almost trivial compared to Rex's silent power. Jack demonstrated feeding techniques, containment protocols, and behavioral commands with calm authority, each action reinforcing the respect he had earned. Alien students watched silently, some wide-eyed, some trembling, but all aware that humans carried a different kind of instinct, one born from a world that demanded excellence or death. As the day ended, Troukeen approached Jack quietly, mandibles flexing with what might have been respect. "Mr. Carter," he said, "it seems, perhaps we underestimated Earth. Perhaps we underestimated your species entirely." Jack smirked. "Maybe. Or maybe you just haven't met enough of us yet." Farashka gave him a faint smile, tail curling around the deck's railing. "I think I'd like to learn more. Your species is fascinating." Jack grinned back, eyes on Rex, floating contentedly in the reinforced water. "Stick around, mate. There's a lot you haven't seen yet." As the students and faculty dispersed, whispers began anew, stories of the human who commanded a predator, tamed a death-world creature, and walked through fear without flinching. The legend was growing and Jack Carter had only just begun. Somewhere in the back of the hall, Drone muttered, "This is not over." But even he could not deny that the human had changed the way the Academy viewed danger, respect, and survival. Jack looked at the setting suns through the observation windows, a small smile playing across his face. The galaxy had learned something vital that day. Humans were not merely clever, they were capable of commanding life itself, and sometimes a lesson needed teeth to make its point. The final day of the Species Companion exhibition arrived with a tense air, the Academy buzzing as though every creature and student sensed the climax of an event that would be remembered for decades. Jack Carter moved through the grand habitat hall like he owned it, not from arrogance, but because the space now belonged to the story he had written with his actions. Rex's tank gleamed under the twin suns, reinforced and monitored, but the golden eyes beneath the water seemed almost to anticipate the day's final challenge. Students clustered around displays, but whispers always drifted back to the human and his predator. No one approached him without caution, some in awe, some in fear, some in disbelief. Even Drone stayed several meters back, quivering at the very thought of proximity. The gelatinous alien had spent the night planning how to discredit Jack, yet every plan collapsed under the weight of reality. The human had not just survived, he had rewritten the rules of respect and dominance in the Academy. Farashka joined him near Rex's tank. "It is remarkable," she said, her claws idly tracing the edge of the reinforced metal. "You command a creature capable of consuming a quarter of this hall, and yet it obeys." Jack shrugged, the sunlight catching the gold flecks in his hair. "Not command," he said softly. "Trust. That's the difference. Most creatures respond to fear, Farashka. Rex responds to respect. You see the same in humans sometimes." She studied him, her gaze searching past his grin and into something deeper. "And you trust him?" Jack knelt by the tank, hand brushing against Rex's rough scales. "I don't just trust him. I know him. You can't fake millions of years of instinct." The exhibition began in earnest. Students presented, lectures were given, awards tallied, but all eyes inevitably returned to Rex. Every alien knew this human had done what none could imagine, made a monster docile without harming it, a feat bordering on incomprehensible. Then came the challenge. The final segment of the exhibition was not a contest of beauty, intellect, or novelty. It was a demonstration of ecological control and predator handling. Jack stepped forward to the center of the hall. The other students watched with a mixture of fascination and terror, aware that even a single misstep could have disastrous consequences. A loud alarm suddenly echoed, a test scenario designed to simulate environmental stress. A holographic predator appeared, leaping across the floor in simulated rage. Panic erupted as drones and students scattered. Rex, previously calm, thrashed at the water, reacting to the holographic intrusion. Jack's heart pounded, but he did not falter. He raised a hand, steady as a metronome. "Easy, boy. Ignore the flash. It's not real. Focus." The croc paused mid-thrash, nostrils flaring, eyes locking onto Jack. For a moment, it was as if the world itself had stilled. Every student and faculty member froze, holding their collective breath. Then, slowly, Rex sank back into the water, the simulated predator forgotten. Gasps echoed across the hall. Farashka's scales shimmered with admiration. He calmed it. With a gesture. Jack smiled faintly, rising to his full height. Sometimes the best control is no control at all. You give respect and you earn theirs in return. The principal stepped forward, mandibles flexing with a mixture of relief and awe. Mr. Carter, he said carefully, it appears your species embodies principles we have long theorized but never observed in practice. Humans, it seems, thrive where others merely survive. Jack nodded, but his gaze remained on Rex. We survive because we understand Principal Tralkeen. Not by strength, not by cleverness, but by reading the world. By paying attention to what wants to kill us and learning to work with it instead of fighting it blindly. A murmur spread through the audience. Even Drone's gelatinous form quivered with reluctant respect. Then came the final award, the exhibition's ultimate commendation. The principal's voice boomed through the hall. For demonstrating unparalleled mastery of predator behavior, insight into interspecies communication, and courage beyond measure, the special commendation for extraordinary ecological stewardship goes to Jack Carter of Earth. The hall erupted. Students cheered, though some stayed frozen in awe. Jack's grin widened as Effarishka clapped her claws together, the only sound matching the applause of amazement. Drone, meanwhile, receded into the shadows, defeated yet enlightened. Jack stepped toward Rex's tank, kneeling once more. The croc lifted its massive head, golden eyes blinking slowly in recognition. Jack reached in, brushing the beast's scales with a hand that trembled ever so slightly from adrenaline. You did good, boy, he murmured. Every last one of them knows now. Effarishka studied him. Do you realize what you have done? You did not merely win an award. You altered perception, shifted power, and taught an entire academy a lesson they will not forget. Jack shrugged casually, though his eyes betrayed pride. I just showed them what humans have been doing for millennia without thinking twice. Survive, adapt, respect the predator, and sometimes smile while doing it. The hall quieted as Rex gave a low, almost imperceptible growl, the sound vibrating through the reinforced tank, a reminder that the creature was not tamed in fear but in trust. And in that quiet, all who witnessed the event understood something fundamental. Humans were not merely clever. They were apex survivors, and their relationship with danger was not instinct alone, but wisdom born from relentless experience. Jack looked toward the observation deck, where a new batch of students and faculty had arrived, faces pale and mouths open. Stick around, he said quietly to Effarishka. There's a lot more Earth where Rex came from. She smiled faintly, tail curling in approval. I think I will, Jack Carter. I think I will. As the academy buzzed with chatter about the human and his monster, whispers turned to legend and legend began to grow. Somewhere deep in the transport bay, Rex shifted beneath the water, golden eyes gleaming, calm yet untamed. Jack stood beside him, a simple hand resting on a predator that had survived since before the stars were young. The final bell echoed through the hall, signaling the end of the exhibition. But for Jack, for Rex, and for every student who had witnessed the human's mastery, it was only the beginning. Humanity had arrived at the Interstellar Academy not just as a species, but as a force, capable of commanding respect, surviving where others faltered, and leaving an indelible mark on the galaxy. Jack Carter stepped out of the hall, wet boots slapping lightly against the floor, eyes glinting with the thrill of challenge. Somewhere behind him, a whisper of fear and admiration spread. This was a species to be reckoned with. And with Rex at his side, Jack knew the universe had only just glimpsed what humans were truly capable of.